Samuel?
No, it's all right. Sorry, my mistake. I'll stop.
Take two.
Yeah, we'll just carry on. Hello.
Hello.
And welcome to our second YouTube video in our current sermon series called Choose Your King on the book of Samuel. So for this particular sermon, we were looking at 1 Samuel chapter 1 to 2 verse 10. And it's quite interesting when we think about the names in that passage and how they help us understand that passage a bit more. So to get ourselves started, I thought I'd begin by having a little look at your name and seeing what that means. So on behindthename.com, it tells us that Andrew is gender masculine, so that's a good start. So it's a boy's name.
Yes.
And looking through it here, it's an English form of the Greek name Andreas. Sounds a bit like a girl's name, if I'm honest. And but it was derived from the original word meaning manly or masculine. Well, there's always the exception that proves the rule, or maybe we'll be able to work on that. But so that's what Andrew means.
Yes, that's my name. Hopefully we'll get there at some point, be masculine. But anyway, so I'm going to be reading from 1 Samuel. There was a man named Elkanah who lived in Ramah in the region of Ziph, in the hill country of Ephraim. He was the son of Jeroham, son of Elihu, and son of Tohu, son of Ziph of Ephraim. Elkanah had 2 wives, Hannah and Peninnah. Peninnah had children, but Hannah did not. Each year, Elkanah would travel to Shiloh to worship and sacrifice to the Lord of Heaven's armies at the tabernacle. The priests of the Lord at the time were the 2 sons of Eli, Hophni and Phinehas. On the days of Elkanah presented his sacrifice, he would give portions of meat to Peninnah and each of her children. And though he loved Hannah, he would give her only one choice portion, because the Lord had given her no children. So Peninnah would taunt Hannah and make fun of her because the Lord had kept her from having children. Year after year it was the same. Peninnah would taunt Hannah as they went to the tabernacle. Each time, Hannah would be reduced to tears and would not even eat. "Why are you crying, Hannah?" Elkanah would ask. "Why aren't you eating? Why be downhearted just because you have no children? You have me. Isn't that better than having 10 sons? Hannah's prayer for a son. Once after a sacrificial meal at Shiloh, Hannah got up and went to pray. Eli the priest was sitting in his customary place beside the entrance of the tabernacle. Hannah was in deep anguish, crying bitterly as she prayed to the Lord, and she made this vow: "O Lord of heaven's armies, if you look upon my sorrow and answer my prayer and give me a son, then I will give him to you. He will be yours for his entire life, and a sign that he has been dedicated to the Lord. His hair will never be cut." As she was praying to the Lord, Eli watched her, seeing her lips moving but hearing no words and sound. He thought she had been drinking. "Must you come here drunk?" he demanded. "Throw away your wine." "Oh no, sir," she replied. "I haven't been drinking wine or anything stronger, but I am very discouraged, and I was pouring out my heart to the Lord. Don't think I am a wicked woman, for I have been praying out a great anguish and sorrow." "In that case," Eli said, "go in peace. May God of Israel grant the request you have asked him." "Oh, thank you, sir," she exclaimed. Then she went back and began to eat again, and she was no longer sad. The entire family got up the next morning and went to worship the Lord once more. Then she returned home to Ramah. When Elkanah slept with Hannah, the Lord remembered her plea, and in due time she gave birth to a son. She named him Samuel, for she said, "I asked the Lord for him."
Here we have a fascinating story which begins the book of Samuel, and although it starts with a man's name, Elkanah, really this is about Hannah. This is about Samuel's mother. And what's really fascinating about this story is that Hannah and Peninnah, who are in some respects the key main characters at the start of this story, they're both in many ways very similar to each other. They're both victims of the situation that they found themselves in, victims of the culture that they live in, but also victims of how they were being treated by their husband, Elkanah. But their response in these situations is widely different, and their names, fascinatingly, can speak into this situation a little bit and give us a bit of a unique insight. So the name Peninnah, if we start with her, actually means precious stone or pearl. And what was fascinating with this name Peninnah is that actually Peninnah, she didn't feel very precious at all, because she wasn't the first wife to her husband. And although she was able to bear so many children for her husband, he still seemed to be showing favour to her first wife, his first wife. In many ways, she would have felt like a lesser person, striving to feel precious, to just deserve the love or get the love that she thought that she deserved from her husband. Hannah, on the other hand, she was the favourite. Elkanah clearly saw Hannah as an important part of his life, and he cared for her. He gave her double portions when they were at the temple, which was very unusual, and it was really a testament to the fact that he still saw value in her in a culture where her fact that she was childless and didn't seem to be able to bear a child despite how much they had tried, that culture would have looked down on her. They would have seen that she hadn't fulfilled what was expected of her as a wife, as a woman in that situation. Hannah was really not in a very great position. So both Hannah and Peninnah were both in many ways not having the best of times. However, what's fascinating is how they both deal with the cards that they've been dealt. Because Peninnah, her shame that she had because of the lack of love and interest that Elkanah was showing her, she turned that shame into spite. And she allowed that shame to come out in a bullying towards Hannah. She really put Hannah through a hard time. Hannah, on the other hand, her shame she turned into something else. You see, her shame, despite how low she felt, she recognized that there was only one person that she could turn to help her deal with that. Only one person who really understood the meaning of her name, which was grace. And so Hannah, rather than in the usual reaction which so many do, by hitting out towards other people, by showing your anger and your frustration at how bad and ashamed you feel, rather than that, she reached and turned to God. And she made a promise with God. And what's amazing is we see that we've got these two situations. We've got the one situation of shame, which is turned into abuse, and we've got the other, which is shame, which is turned into a new identity in God. And God, in return, offered the most amazing blessing to Hannah, because Hannah was given a child, Samuel. Samuel, who we will be learning about, who went on to do great things. Samuel wasn't the only child that she was blessed with, but in her promise, she promised that if you bless me with this child, that I will dedicate this child to you, that I will put him into your service. And that's what she did. She made a promise with God, and she kept that promise. Hannah showed or realized that despite the lack of grace that she was receiving from Peninnah, from the culture that she lived in, She knew that she could turn to God for that grace. Whereas Penina, she didn't feel precious, she didn't feel chosen. And yet sadly, that shame turned into anger and turned into abuse. It really just makes us think, in this situation, who would we want to be? Would we like to be Hannah, or would we like to be Penina?